And welcome back, folks, to the CitizenWolf podcast. This is episode 1 you're currently listening to. Or welcome if you haven't listened to episode 0. It's episode 0 because it's non-canon. It was recorded very, very badly. I do apologise for the very severe audio clipping. If I've done my job correctly, it should sound a lot better this time instead of me as if I was standing 30 feet away from the KFC drive-through speaker system. You know how those things sound very terrible. It's not that bad, but I know it's quite difficult to listen to, but I do apologise in advance. I apparently forgotten how to operate a microphone. But anyway, it's episode 1, and we've got a special guest for you today. We've got Hunter with us today. So welcome to the podcast. How are you today? It's always the first 5-10 minutes is a bit awkward. I haven't done one of these in probably about 2 or 3 years. Probably a podcast like this with somebody talking to somebody else anyway. So it's as I say, this podcast is still very much a work in progress. So it's going to be a bit of a learn experience for both of us, I think. So I've got a bunch of questions I'm going to interrogate Hunter with over the next hour or so, and hopefully it'll be interesting and entertaining. And we've gathered some questions from some of the hopefully soon-to-be listeners and viewers on Picato. I will sort out some sort of audio feed. If people like this episode, then please feel free to leave your comments and feedback so we can improve. And, of course, hopefully we'll still make it interesting for you guys. As with the theme of the first episode, of course, or episode 0, I should call it, the episode that never happened, I will say, because it's not. I'm so ashamed to make reference to it. So the basic gist is I'll be asking a bunch of questions, and the whole theme around is basically talking about MLP art and stuff, and how we both got into it. Mainly, of course, mostly about Hunter 80% of it anyway. But I will be interjecting every so often, and of course, a bunch of questions from some guys on Twitter and Discord. So hopefully you find it interesting. Are you ready, Hunter?
I was born ready for this. I would hope I was born ready for this anyway.
Born ready. Here we go. Of course, I suppose it's a bit generic, but it's best to start from the beginning, not the middle or the end. What makes no sense. So the origins then. How did you first become an artist then? What influenced you to take your first steps of making art in general?
Now that is an interesting one because, believe it or not, before I got into this whole 3D pony art scene, I actually was into vector art. That was kind of my mainstay in the fandom. In fact, my very first submission was a wallpaper I made on DeviantArt. So I actually got into the fandom around 2012, I would say. I started making art around 2012, and I started making vectors around that time. And eventually I started to, just start tracing over stuff. I try to make a few sketches here and there, but I'll be honest, I'm not a very good 2D artist. Those guys have super talent that I don't have, but, have respect to them. So that's generally my origins to it. Just little sketches here and there, little vectors here and there. The occasional recolor, because, every 16-year-old eventually does a recolor. That's just the way it is in the fandom. And that's kind of what influenced. That is what made me get into art. As for influence wise, I saw a bunch of wallpapers, and I'm like, I want to make cool wallpapers too. And I saw these thing called vectors, and I'm like, I like how big those images are. I want to make my own too, and that's kind of how the influence started, at least in a general sense. In the lewd sense, it is a whole different story. But I think we'll be getting to that.
I think. So I think for people who don't know, so what's a vector then? So you describe a vector. So is that like a picture format? What's a vector when you're describing a vector?
A vector is essentially, if you watch the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, and you see these very colorful, very cute, very nice and sharp ponies. Basically, what a vector is it's taking essentially a screen cap of that. Redrawing it with the outline, with the dark blue outline and the light blue outline, like say we're doing Rainbow Dash, retracing it and essentially making it to where that image can be scaled exponentially. So in wallpapers, vectors are everything because you can downscale them, you can upscale them, and they will keep the resolution no matter what. That is essentially what a vector is. in my definition, and they are just a really fun way to make art because they're cute, they look like the show, and they just have a very appealing style. Because I mean, we kind of all got into MLB because of its art style, and the vector is essentially what its art style is. It's just 2D vectors, scalable. You can move them around. And it's all good stuff. I love it. Love it a lot.
So it's as close as you can get to the original show's assets, basically. Like you take the show, like you trace over like a pony or what have you, and then you make an asset which basically can scale it to as big as you want in terms of resolution without losing quality. That makes sense.
Yes, indeed. That is exactly what it is, and it is an awesome art format. Love it to death.
So was there a particular episode, or was it? So you said about 2012, you got into it basically. So was there a particular episode where you decided, oh, I'm going to start making my own artwork, or was it more of a gradual type of thing?
Ooh, now you're really making me think back, Wolf. Let's see.
You said you wanted a challenge.
I do like a challenge indeed, so I'll take it on. So let me see. Anything in particular that influenced me? I do know there was a bunch of wallpapers I was getting into, and I kind of wanted to make my own personal touch. I was seeing a bunch of vectors. I'm like, that would be cool to put on the wallpaper. That would be cool to put on a wallpaper. As for any particular influence, I don't think I have any. I just kind of, on a whim someday, I was like, I want to try to make something, and it just kind of happened out of nowhere. Same thing with the vectoring. Originally, I was like, I didn't know how to do it, and I just wanted to try it out. So I pulled up a tutorial on YouTube, and it showed me the program to use, which is free. And I'm like, all right, let's give it a shot. And then I just kind of went with it. And eventually, you just keep doing it and keep doing it, and it just becomes a little habit at that point.
So what program did you use? Was it Photoshop or something else?
So interestingly enough, I actually started out using Inkscape, which is an open source free vector program, which is extremely powerful, simple to use, and it is one of my favorite programs ever. And it's completely free. So that's how I originally started doing vectors. Then around 2013, 2014, I think, maybe a little bit earlier, I actually switched over to Photoshop, which is actually a very bad thing to do because Photoshop uses raster graphics, meaning if you don't use the right tools, your image can be scaled up and it's going to look blurry. And if you downscale it, it's also going to be kind of the same thing. It'll look kind of very blurry. So I kind of did a big no-no for a long time using making vectors in Photoshop. That didn't stop until I actually managed to get the current PC I'm using now, which I built myself. I had no programs whatsoever, and I'm like, I want to do a vector. Let's do Inkscape because Photoshop I don't have at the moment. So I went back to Inkscape for that, and you know what? I'm so glad I did because Inkscape is a million times easier to make vectors in Inkscape than it is in Photoshop because you actually have tools that allow you to keep everything consistent and help everything keep straight. Where in Photoshop, you just kind of have to guess and hope you're getting it right. And since, of course, it's raster graphics, sometimes it'll glitch out and move the lines to the left and move the lines to the right, and it just doesn't keep consistent. So if anyone is ever interested in vector art, Inkscape, it's free, it's easy to use. There's a bunch of tutorials out there, and you can make some incredible stuff in Inkscape. You would not believe the amount of stuff you can make in Inkscape. It is just unreal.
So you're not a fan of Photoshop then?
Not on vectors, no. Photoshop is good for a lot of things like post-editing pictures if you do 3D art and if you want to do like more advanced like drawings and stuff. But if you want to stick to show style vectors, you got to go with Inkscape. There is no other competition for it.
Well, there you go then, Inkscape. I'm still rocking MS Paint, by the way. I haven't moved past that yet. I still use it an awful lot just for really simple things like resizing photos, but I cannot draw to save my life. So I've got no experience in it at all because all my stuff looks terrible. All the stuff I used to draw anyway by pencils anyway. But I will never ever show those ever again.
I know the pain there. My first few sketches, I'm like, posted one online. I'm like, I don't think I ever want to post another one again because it just looks so awkward and so disproportionate. No, I won't ever do that again.
I think the phrase is, I think you got like 1,000 bad drawings in your arm. I've heard someone say that before. before you start getting to a decent standard. I don't know how true that is, but I've heard that thrown around a few times, that phrase anyway.
I could certainly believe that. That's for sure.
Oh my goodness, 1,000, 1,000. It's a big time investment, put it that way. So you're looking at your Deep Derpy Brewery account, of course. Like you've only got a very few 2D pieces of artwork on there. So, but you transitioned to 3D rather quickly. What made you decide to jump ship, if that's the correct phrase? Not really, but decide to do 3D artwork instead, more so than 2D vector stuff.
Well, the 3D art comes down to when I was getting older and I started to discover more, let's say, risque parts of the fandom.
Right, yeah.
Originally, I was very much against the kind of anthro, kind of humanized scene. And eventually, your body grows, you change, and you start to get into that stuff. And eventually, I saw this dude, which some of you may recognize, known as Black Junior or Black JR. It's
Yes.
a very legendary animator in the early MLP SFM fandom. And I saw his works, and I'm like, I want to be him one day. I want to make animations like that someday. And, eventually I had to start researching. And eventually I learned, hey, he uses the Soria body. Hey, he's using this program called Source Filmmaker. Oh, it's free too. This is going to be so easy. Guess what, folks? It was not easy. Very first time I opened up SFM and loaded in that Soria body, I had no clue what I was looking at. I didn't know what any of the bones meant. I didn't know what any of these screens meant. And I essentially gave up. I don't know exactly what made the spark come back, but eventually I guess I saw another animation of his, and I'm like, I want to try it again. So I sat down. I kept looking at tutorials. I kept looking at documentation, which I think there was like a few pieces here and there every now and then.
It's very sparse, isn't it, generally?
It was very sparse in the early days, extremely sparse. So you kind of really had to figure this stuff out yourself, but eventually I started looking at it. I eventually figured it out, and I eventually made my very first picture, which is eye melting, to say the least.
I'll put a picture up. I'll put it up on the screen for the video version. Of course, I'll show you that. It's like is that the Twilight picture, if I remember off the top of my head? Or
my very first picture would actually be a Shirley and Scootaloo one, where they are in Fluttershy's house, and there is no lighting whatsoever, and in one of the angles you can actually see the green screen. So not a lot of effort into it, but we all got to start somewhere.
I wouldn't say low ever, of course. It's quite a big investment to learn how to use the software. So it was basically like it was a desire to make your own artwork. Like, I really like Black Junior's stuff. I think, I'll have a go at try making my own material. That was the main motivation to learn how to use the software. Was it around, what time was that around? Was that 2014, 2015, was that, or a bit later than that?
I would have to check my image history, but I think it was around,
I would just say maybe 2050. When was he making stuff?
Black Junior has been active since 2012.
I was going to say, we'll say 2015. I'd say he started to get.
He did get big around 2014, and I would say that's around the time I was starting getting interested in it. But I didn't actually start making it until maybe 2016, 2017. So fairly recent in all things considered. But yeah, Black Junior has been around for a very long time. Very influential, if you ask me.
He's still making things, I believe, as well.
He does.
I don't think he's inactive anymore. I think he still makes things.
He does still make things. A lot of it is Patreon exclusive, unfortunately, but it has been starting to trickle into the public. But he's still doing his thing. Does a lot more human animations though. Not as many MLP stuff, but he occasionally throws us a bone every now and then.
Damn him for moving on to human stuff.
I agree.
So that was around that was around. Okay, I'm reading too far into the questions here. This is where it gets a bit ropey in the podcast. I'm still. This is where this is where I mean where I'm saying like the podcast. It's the first 10-15 minutes is a bit ropey, especially if you haven't done it in ages. So yeah, these questions. What made you start making art? Of course, that you've already covered that already. I've mixed all these questions together because there's similar themes as well. How did you get into MLP? So that was around the same time you got into the MLP 3D community. Is that the same time you got involved with the 3D community at large, or was it a little bit later than that?
So I did not get involved in the 3D community until, like I said, around 2016, 2017-ish, but I was checking out a lot of the 3D art around maybe 2014, I would think. Yeah, around 2014 is when I really started to seek more of the art that was from the 3D community, which there is a lot of good art in there. I can say that. A lot of good art in the 3D community.
Oh, definitely. There's a lot of stuff. Even now, there's still a lot of amazing things coming out, but we'll cover that a little bit later, I think. So what was it? What was it like to be around when MLP and Source Filmmaker got big around the same time, didn't they? Around maybe 2011, 2012, where like it was at its peak popularity, both the program and the software itself. So what was it like to be around when that was first taking off?
Oh goodness, those days were a lot of fun. Mind you, I wasn't in the lewd community around that time, at least not as heavily. But just seeing all those amazing SFM animations and just having so much fan content to consume was it really was a golden age in the Brony fandom, in my opinion, because those times I cherish heavily. I got involved with so many friends, so much drama, so much stuff was happening, and it was just so much fun. And as for the 3D community, there was a lot of like exploration, and there was a lot of creativity, and there was a lot of just unique ideas being thrown about, especially for animations. I wouldn't say SFM was at its peak just yet because I think Argo Diamond and all those big name, pony SFMers, they weren't really around until maybe 2013, 2014, but there was still a lot of cool content to go around, especially in the PMV scene. There was a lot of good lip synced videos to songs, and some of them were just amazing. I remember one animator, no names left, who unfortunately did leave the fandom. He had some wicked cool animations, wicked cool SFM animations with the pony singing to songs, and it was just some really good stuff. So it was a very magical time indeed. Unfortunately, that time has passed us, but I'd say, honestly, nowadays that there's still a lot of magic here. I mean, especially in the 3D world, but we'll cover that in little bit later. But there is still a lot of great talent popping out, and you're just surprised at just how many people are still finding MLP for the first time and just joining in. Like, it's just amazing.
Yeah, it is, especially with the 3D stuff. Like there's a lot of new blood coming through. Even though the show ended, was it last year? Was it? Has it been a year since it?
It has been a whole year, believe it or not.
So last year, 2019. So that's when the season 9 concluded. So there's still a lot of new people coming through, like using SFM. Of course, we'll talk about Blender in a little bit. It's a shame, like when you're talking about the a lot of the big stuff, a lot of the popular MLP videos, PMVs and stuff. Like a lot of that stuff is lost now. That people like move on or just deleted their materials. I guess they're ashamed of it. I suppose. I don't know. I guess that's part of it, but I can't really comment much on that because I was quite late to the game, basically. Well, especially making 3D stuff. I've only been doing it very, very recently, but I think. I'm trying to think I think probably 2013, 2014, I probably started watching the show, I suppose, and then from there, so that's quite late actually, because 2012 was at the peak. I think that was that the wedding season? Was it?
That was the wedding season, indeed. And
I think that was one of the big episodes anyway.
That was a big episode at the time, and there was so many memes going around. There was so much hype. I mean, that season finale was a magical season finale because there were so many people tuning into that. It was unreal.
That was the was that the most popular episode? It probably is in terms of viewing figures. I haven't really looked, to be honest.
I don't know about viewing figures because viewing figures are kind of a very, very weird thing to analyze. But in terms of like fandom hype, that episode is highly regarded. I mean, considering the fact that This Day Ariel for a long time was the most viewed song for MLP, like official MLP song wise, says a lot because that song was catchy, and a lot of people saw that episode, and I think they really did become fans of My Little Pony because of those songs and just the action and just the animation style was because of that 2-part episode at the end of season 2. And I think if they had done anything different, the episode or the show might not have lasted as long. But since they hit magic at that right time, it just propelled them on to the next 9 years essentially.
It's a different beast though, wasn't it? It's sort of it is lightning in a bottle, isn't it? Like what actually happened to it? Like season 1. I don't know. I'm still. Of course, we've had discussions about this, of course, outside the podcast, where like we've talked about how the brony fandom and like the phenomenon, I should say, like how it sort of started and how it's sort of lasted so long. 9 seasons is a crazy long run, especially for a cartoon. I don't remember. Not very many get past like 2 or 3 at the most, but MLP managed 9, 10 across 10 years. So
to think a show designed for it was designed for families from lower Foss, but essentially a brand designed for little girls that lasted 9 seasons. Guys, 9 seasons is incredible for that. Like, that is just a legendary status right there. So, yeah, it is just lightning in a bottle. And I really hope they can do lightning in a bottle again with G5 because I would love to see 9 seasons of that too. I don't know anything about it, but I would love to just see it expand again because it's just fun seeing it last that long.
Oh, of course. I think we'll talk about it a little bit later. I think because there's so much I can go off on a tangent for the next half, like 45 minutes. So maybe cover that at the end. But because we're talking about that's a whole another
Yes.
kettle of that's another podcast episode in of itself. So
It is.
possibly we'll cover that at the end, of course. Not that I've got anything else to do, of course, but I don't want to use too much of your time, of course. So. You of course, when it comes to 3D making 3D artwork, you are now a part of this group called NexGen, where the NexGen group you are one of the lead developers. So what is the NexGen project, I should say, and how did you become involved with that, making materials for that?
Well, first off, I like to clarify, Wolf, that I am not actually one of the lead developers of the project.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, I'm just the guy who helps on them. So I just help with them on occasion. But NexGen to me is kind of the next evolution of Anthro 3D art. We all remember the days of Soria, like I mentioned earlier, and that process involved head hacking, making your own textures, and it was a long process to try to get one character in, and trying to do multiple characters in took a long time. And that drove away a lot of people because, like I said, when I launched SFM and loaded that body in, I was scared. I didn't know what to do. And like I mentioned, there wasn't any documentation and there wasn't any helpfulness. So when the NexGen project started, which was around 2013, 2014, you might have to fact check me on that, but it's been a long time developing. They wanted to make SFM as easy as possible for new beginners. So more people could jump in and have an easier time making pictures and animations. And we have seen those results. I mean, because look at all this new talent coming in. I mean, we have Shadowball SFM joining it and becoming one of the best artists. We have you yourself trying it out too. And
Stop it.
Hey, you're an artist, you're new, and you're doing some really great scene builds and some really great pictures with some good lighting. So you're in there too. NexGen has opened up a lot of doors to a whole lot of new talent. And I'm just glad I could have the opportunity to just foster this new generation of 3D art because NexGen really did, I guess, revitalize that whole aspect of it.
So when did that come about, NexGen? When was that? When was the first version, or shall we say, became available? Was that 2 or 3 years ago? Or was it earlier than that?
Oh, I think it was 2 years ago that we did have our first release, if I'm not mistaken. But geez, it's been a long time, but I think it was around 2018 that we did have our first release because I do remember that day clearly. I was at a comic book convention of sorts, and I remember the release going out and just the excitement of having just all these new users just starting to try out NexGen. It was just very exciting. So yeah, I think it was around 2018. I think March of that, or May of that year, somewhere around there.
It's quite a Herculean project as well. Like you've got not all of the ponies, but probably 95% of them are covered in it at least. I would say for the SFM version anyway.
Yeah, there is a lot of ponies to to cover, and I know not all of them have models, but we tried our best to try to get them all on there. So
I think it's a bit unfair to expect all of them, but you've covered what a massive wide gamut of them. Really impressive.
like over 150 characters, if I'm not mistaken. So got lots of choices.
There's one or two that's not in there, but yeah. Anyway, probably my favourites. But like, I'm one of them weirdos. I like the really obscure ones that only appeared like once and never appeared again. But you know, you get those kind of people, I suppose. But so it's the barrier of entry for SFM. It did pull off a lot of people, didn't it? Especially in the early. It's not a particularly easy program, from my point of view, anyway. To get to grips with. It's I'll talk about it a little bit more, but it wasn't a little bit later on, of course. But it, for me anyway, when I was trying to learn how to make my own stuff, I just couldn't get the hang of it. It was documentation, of course, especially in regards to MLP, in relation to MLP stuff. There's not information is very little on the ground, and so its interface isn't great. It's quite archaic, and of course we'll cover that a little bit more, because we've talked about this already outside the podcast, like discussing about why SFM got popular, and like a lot of it's still a very, very popular program in the MLP community, but like a lot of people, of course, and some people are like, ooh, we've got this newfangled thing called Blender and stuff and all this stuff, but we'll get to that. So of course, Blender is like one of the it's quite a fairly, I wouldn't say it's a new kid in town, but like it's only in very recent years, especially with version 2.8 onwards, where it's really picking up steam now, if you ask me. So you of course you learned how to use SFM in the early days, but now you've pretty much fully transitioned to Blender. Why have you decided to move on to Blender for your new 3D artwork?
Blender, for me, I wanted to transition to it because I was getting lessons from JDash, from one of the co-developers of NexGen. He was offering me lessons, and I'm like, hey, why can't I make a picture in Blender? And he's like, you can. I'm like, oh, well, let's try that out. So in those days, those models, I had to essentially relearn how to use them, because Blender is a whole different program, a whole different beast entirely. And I think the reason I wanted to switch is because SFM, you have to use like these pre-built assets, and you have to search for them all the time. And you do that in Blender as well, but in Blender you have that option to make your own stuff, and the ability to make your own stuff on the spot is unreal. It is so empowering. It does take a lot of time, but you can make it your own, you can make it unique, and it does give you a unique style and unique models that you can distribute to others, because you made it, it's your own design, and it's your own personality infused in it. So I wanted to use Blender simply because I wanted something different, and honestly, I wanted a challenge too, because I felt with SFM I kind of plateaued because I can only do so much with pre-built assets and the lighting system it has. But with Blender, with cycles and Eevee, especially nowadays, you have so many options, and it's faster. To me, it's easier to use as well, and it just gives a better quality to the pictures as well. So I think that's kind of why I transitioned to Blender as well, is because I plateaued with SFM and I wanted to improve. So why not try something that will actually improve my pictures objectively as well?
So it was the next logical step for you, basically, like in you learning how to, making better artwork in general.
Yeah, that was essentially, is just, I want to make better art, and what better way to do it than using a better program that actually allows me to be limitless with this stuff.
Now, of course, before like people like to switch off and say like, "Oh, we're dissing SFM," like all the artists that use it, and we're not doing that.
No,
people make amazing things with SFM.
Yeah, and there's so, like, I am impressed by just how people can push SFM to its limitations and still
they
get it.
do.
And they do a lot, and they can make some jaw-dropping pictures. I mean, some stuff that I look at and I'm like, how is this made in SFM? I can't do this in Blender. How can they do it in SFM? Like, there is just so much amazing stuff out there.
They can make it sing, even though, despite its limitations, it's pretty remarkable stuff. But as I say, like with SFM, so there's limitations to it, of course. Like we both know this, of course. Like, especially with me, I tried to learn how to use SF. Like I wanted to learn how to make my own stuff because I basically got. I wanted to try and make my own stuff, but instead of like basically just commission everybody to do, like to cater to what I was looking for. So I wanted to. I'll give it a go. Try how to use SFM, but I couldn't get on with it. I just couldn't understand how to use the interface. It's clunky. It crashes frequently. I think it crashed. I'm stating the office. Obviously, SFM crashes. It's crashed again, has it? Oh, whoop-de-doo. What else is new? But now that I've started to get to grips with Blender, it really does put into perspective how dated it really is. SFM really is in terms of like the new stuff that you can with not just Blender, but like Maya and all the other fancy 3D programs. But of course, like MLP, Blender's probably the more logical step to use. But it crashes frequently, and there's a memory limitation. It's only 32-bit, which means you can only use, is it 4 gigabytes maximum?
It is 4 gigabytes of RAM, yes.
That's, in terms of making 3D artwork, that's nothing in this day and age. Like, you've got machines that have got like 16 gigs minimum, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and how much VRAM, 8 gigabytes VRAM upwards, and it's like, despite all those limitations, like, people are making amazing things with it, like despite with the lighting and stuff, like, they really know how to make that software dance, but I just couldn't. Basically,
neither could I, Wolf. Neither could I.
Yeah, but it's so when I basically gave up, like, this was, I think this was probably about like a year ago now, where I gave up with it. Like, I didn't understand how the user interface, and I couldn't find any relevant documentation, so I ended up giving up for 6 months. And then with this thing that's happening at the moment, getting furloughed from work, basically, still getting like most of the pay, but like basically you have to stay at home basically for a couple of months. So that's what happened. So I don't know what encouraged me to use Blender. I think it's just I wanted another crack at it, and like I just thought, okay, I'll use this program called Blender. A lot of people saying it's really good and stuff like that. So I watched Blender Guru's tutorial and started from there. This was 3 months ago now, and I think it was 3 months ago now. You'll know this because I was spamming your Discord with works in progress, wasn't I, for the last 3 or 4 months?
I wouldn't say it was spamming. I was just being helpful. I mean, you were essentially a little student of mine.
That fucking prick sending me works in progress again. Like, I did overdo it, kind of. I did count how many. There's at least 200 odd pictures easily from that point. So, because I was basically using it as a makeshift work in progress repository. So I had to download all the pictures again, because I tend to keep all the stuff I do. But anyway, enough about me. So when did you decide to learn how to use Blender? Was it like a couple of years ago, or was it more recent than that?
Blender, I started to use a year and a half ago, maybe. Like I said, I was getting taught by a person named J-Dash. He kind of showed me the basics. After that point, I kind of, went on to Blender Guru's tutorial. And back in these days, this was before 2.8. So I was using 2.79, which is a radically different interface. It had some janky controls to select an object.
Yes.
It was right click instead of left click. It was very backwards. It took a lot of adjustments to get used to, but eventually I started to use that a year and a half ago. Got the lessons from J-Dash and made my first picture in it, which I remember it was a Twilight one, and I remember that picture specifically.
Oh, that's what I was thinking of earlier. Yes, that's your first Blender picture. Okay, yes.
That picture one, we'll put it up on the screen, but she had some very big bug eyes, so those were kind of very creepy eyes. But from that point forward, I just kept trying to crack at it, trying to figure out the secrets of it, and I eventually got it to work. So kind of got it to work for my favor. But 2.8 really was the game changer, because that changed that interface a lot, and that's kind of what propelled my art into the I guess the next level, because Eevee, that real-time rendering, saves so much time.
Yeah, that's quite it's quite a big update. 2.8 in comparison. It's so 2.79, 2.8. Like when we say, oh, who cares? It's like a new version, like Microsoft Windows or whatever, Microsoft Office or whatever. Who cares? They haven't changed it. 2.8 is a drastically different beast to what to previous versions of it. Like, of course, you were talking about the Eevee render, which is like real time rendering, which makes it a lot easier to look at what the final product will look like, and it's crazy fast and like it's efficient. It's and the interface, a lot of the tweaks have been made. Right click is actually context menus now, which is what it should be in the first place. It's and the interface is completely different, and it's a lot more friendly to artists. That's the biggest thing I'm trying to get across. Even for complete beginners such as myself, you can learn with 2.8 is such a high standard and so user friendly if you put the time in how to learn it. Even if you know absolutely nothing about MLP modeling or making your own materials or importing assets and all that other stuff, with a good tutorial such as Blender Gurus, as I follow, they're making the donut and the coffee cup. It's fantastic. I cannot stress enough, even if you know absolutely zero, such as myself, about that stuff, you can, with a good tutorial, you've got enough information to start making your own things. I really do stress that.
Very much so, and trust me, that 2.8 experience is so much better than 2.79, because learning 2.79 was that was an interesting little experience, that's for sure. Interesting
Blender pain, as it's known.
Unadulterated Blender pain, as I like to call it.
So you've taken the first baby steps, isn't it? Like, you're basically learning how to walk again, I suppose, in a sense, because you know a lot of stuff from SFM, but you're trying to convert that into a new format, basically. Because Blender's a completely different thing.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. I mean, it's a whole different interface. It's a whole different way to work with the models. I mean, because in SFM, it's easier to pose the models in SFM, but in Blender, you don't have a rig natively. You have to set all that up. You got to set up each individual texture one at a time, and then there's a lot of steps. But once you get it down, it's easy, and you can make some really amazing pictures that look so photorealistic. Like, I've seen one or two images done by the 3D community and MLP, and they look so photorealistic. I honestly thought they were legit real photographs for a second.
Yeah,
no joke.
Yes, it's crazy. Like stuff that you can only dream of to make in FSM anyway. FSM, but yeah. It's SFM was more geared towards it was more geared towards machinima, wasn't it, really, back when that was big back in the early 2010s.
Yeah, I mean, it really was, because don't forget, Source Filmmaker was designed to make those Team Fortress 2 character movies.
Yes.
That's what that program was designed to do, and once people figured out how to import models, that's what it really was used for back in those early days. It wasn't used for pictures. It was used for those music, those PMVs and those original animations and stuff. That's what it originally was used for. Eventually, it kind of did shift over to making pictures once people figured out, ways to get textures in and ways to figure out how the lights work and all that stuff. So, yeah, that's what SFM was for.
Quite ingenious at the time, wasn't it? Like, taking advantage of how people learn how to make the software do what they want, what it wasn't originally designed to do, basically.
Yeah.
So that's why it became big. But of course, it's now when it came. The last update for that was 2015, if I remember correctly. So that's a long time in terms of software, and it's a real shame. It's just Valve just seems to have not lost completely years ago. This was they've lost interest in it. It was sort of a beta anyway. I guess their attitude towards it was.
And I think they still have the label beta inside the program too, if I'm not mistaken. So very much it was never complete. And Valve, they did abandon it, but they did make Source Filmmaker 2. But the problem with that one is it was tied to Dota 2, and you can't even import models from the original SFM into SFM 2, if I'm not mistaken. So it kind of just died then and there, and I don't even think SFM 2 is getting updates either. So
I think it was sort of a bit of a technological dead end, I suppose, for them. I suppose they didn't really. it was a nice idea at the time, but they never really took it anywhere from that, which is a real shame. Because with their resources, it could be an amazing bit of software. What if they did update it to be running 64-bit, like remove the memory limitations, and like, it could have been. It's so frustrating. Well, not for me so much, but for people who still use SFM, it's going to. I can see it definitely becoming more of a problem. Like I was discussing with this about this. Like eventually, I can see what if something in Windows 10 breaks, which means that SFM no longer works anymore. That's a legitimate problem that potentially could happen down the line.
That is a legitimate problem, and to people, I say don't panic because that's not likely to happen soon. But even if it does happen, you have Blender. It's free, and hopefully someday there will be resources on how to use those MLP models inside it. So it will be difficult at first, but once you get past that, your pictures are going to improve dramatically. Trust me, Blender really does make that huge difference. Even with just the real-time rendering and just the color wheel, being able to pick the color of the lights, like actually just like putting in a value, it makes a gigantic difference in terms of how workflow is. So trust me, don't be scared. SFM might crash one day, it might not work, but you got Blender, and Blender will always be there because it's open source, it is constantly being updated, and it's just a wonderful program to use.
And it's free. It doesn't cost you a dime. We've seen the praises of Blender all day, but we recommend Blender, of course. Me and Hunter do, because it's the next logical step, and because there is tools, of course, to help you make the transition. Of course, a lot of those assets that were designed for SFM, like MDL files and all the rest of it, that you can actually import those into Blender if you've got the right add-ons. Of course, like Blender Source Tools is a fantastic bit of software. It's an odd add-on that you install into Blender, completely free once again, and it opens the door. So if you've got a load of old assets you've made for SFM, you can still, with a few caveats of course, import them into Blender, which is rather wonderful. So a lot of the MLP stuff is still predominantly SFM based, but there is a more trickle going towards Blender because of how more it's a lot more. There's pros and cons to it, I suppose. It's more of a steeper learning curve. Is that fair to say with Blender?
I would say, my bad. I would say there is a bit of a learning curve, but I don't think it's as high as people like make it out to be, because you have two sides of Blender. You have the modeling side, and you have the picture making side. If you stick to the picture making side, just stick to basic modeling. You really don't use like probably 90% of the buttons in there. You probably use like 10%. If you use the modeling side, yeah, you're going to use a bit more, but you take that in pieces. Once you learn how to do X with that cube and you learn how to transform it into Y, then eventually you know how to do the entire process of modeling. So don't be intimidated by it if you do want to try out Blender, because like we can see here with Wolf here, he knew nothing about 3D art. He didn't even have SFM experience like I did. And he was able to figure it out. And his second picture is stellar. Like, it is a stellar picture, which you should put up on the screen right here. Like
more, yeah, I'll put it up. It's more luck than judgment, to be honest. But thank you, I do appreciate it.
It is a stellar picture. So if you stick with it, you can do this as well.
But as I say, like with everything, there is a time investment, of course, like with everything. I guess if you have got to be willing to learn the software. Of course, it's not something you can do in 5 minutes, of course not. But with a really good tutorial like I learnt with, and of course with Hunter's help, of course, like he gave me advice and how to do things, like what's this shortcut, how do I do this, how do I do this thing with this object, how do I import things, whatever it was. It's because it's best to like learn the basics first of all, and like I followed the Blender Guru tutorial based on version 2.8. It will work with 2.9 as well. It's only slightly different now, but it will still work just fine. It teaches you the basics of how to move objects in the viewport, how to import things, how to adjust an object using scale modifier, and how to use modifiers, and how to use basic text. It teaches you all the basics to get you started. Basically, it doesn't teach you how to do MLP art specifically, but it gives you the you know what I mean? It gives you the starting blocks, I should say, or the starting cube, I should say. You start off with a cube, the starting cubes of how to use Blender, and I actually finished the beginner tutorial. You make a donut and a coffee cup. It's not perfect, it's a little bit jank, but for a first attempt, it's okay. It turned out all right in the end, and I managed to get the donut to move across the table and spin on a vertical axis and stuff on a little video. I'll put the little clip up, but that's from a person who's again, I stress this, I had zero knowledge on any of that, like, say, 3 or 4 months ago, but because I followed the tutorial, I stuck with it. He made it really easy to understand, even for complete novices like myself. And at the end of it, you make a donut, and like it establishes the blocks how to get started. But of course, Hunter's got more experience than I do, because you learnt with an older version of Blender, which is quite a different beast. But now it's different. You've got a lot more knowledge than me, definitely, on that front.
Maybe a little bit more, but you're catching up there pretty fast, so don't you worry about that.
I'll do what I can. So that's the whole point of this podcast, basically. If we were to encourage like someone to make MLP stuff or just make any kind of art with Blender, then I'll be completely happy with that. So just a bit word of encouragement, like Hunter's got more experience than me, of course, but you're talking to someone who's barely started. I've only put 3 or 4 months experience into it, but I'm getting there. I'm getting a few more bits and pieces, and I've made a few models and stuff, but I'll talk about it a little bit later. I'm waffling on again. I'm interviewing you. Why am I talking?
It's all good. It's all supposed to be natural.
It's you see, like, nearly an hour in, and like we're only halfway through the questions. It gets easier after the first 15-20 minutes. It's a lot. This is the second conversation we've literally had, isn't it? This is the second time I've actually spoken to you over with voice. So
yeah.
We've spoken of Discord, of course, but this is literally the second, I should say, conversation. So yeah, it's turning out all right, isn't it? Yeah. I'm quite happy with how it's going so far. Hope you guys are enjoying it thus far, and certainly will just think about making more of people like it. But do keep sending your feedback and any questions if you got any. We'll get to answering them at some point, I suppose. SFM's days numbered, and if so, why is the case? We've already covered this. Really, it's probably inevitable. It's probably going to stop working eventually.
Yeah, it's inevitable, but you still got time. If you want to take a dive into SFM and get the basics down of it, you still got plenty of time, in my opinion. But, eventually someday it's got to end. And when that's the case, you're going to have that knowledge in SFM, and you're going to have an easier time in Blender. Trust me, once you know how to do that posing and stuff in SFM, Blender will just be easy. You just have to learn how to navigate it, and then the rest is literally just like SFM at that point. So
do you recommend people start with SFM first, or do you recommend people should just jump to Blender straight away? If they were making, in the context of making MLP stuff, so let's just say. That's a difficult one to say. I'm on the fence on that one, to be honest.
I would say if you have a strong desire to learn Blender and you really want to stick with it, because like I said, there is that learning curve and it's going to take some time. But if you truly want to start with Blender, start with Blender. If you struggle with it, SFM is always there. Because SFM, like I said, is easier to get the models in. It's easier to get the textures in. But if you truly want to start with Blender, I'd say go for it. Because Blender really is like a different program compared to when I started with it. It's a lot easier to use. There's still some annoying things like having to load the textures one at a time onto, say, the NexGen body. But once you get that down, it literally is a different beast and can really help you improve your workflow just because of how modern it is. Like, even just a little small thing. It's powerful, yes. Like, even just a small thing, like being able to make a vertical picture without having to turn your head sideways like an SFM. Like, being able to move the camera around without having to, like, mess with your brain, be like, oh, left is up and then right is down and up is left, and yeah,
That's
that's how it
awful.
is to do a vertical picture in SFM. Is you have to think backwards. But in Blender, you can just tell it, hey, I want to flip it this way. And you could just do it like you could just have it straight on. You don't have to crane your neck. You don't have to think backwards how to move the camera. So if you truly want to learn Blender, start with it. But if you struggle, SFM will always be there.
It's so there's different paths, isn't there? Basically, it depends on your preference, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's well for me, of course. Like if SFM proves to be a bit too archaic, then of course move to Blender. There's nothing wrong with moving into Blender and just starting fresh with that like with I did. It's a completely viable option. There's no right or wrong way. There's pros and cons. Like of course, if you start with SFM, of course, like if you can put it with like it's what's the word? Not limitations, but yes, limitations, but of that's not the word I was looking for. It's idiosyncrasies. Is that the correct word?
I don't know if it would be idiosyncrasies per se, but I would say dated. I would say it's a little bit of a dated program.
Archaic, yes, archaic. That's more accurate, isn't it? Like quite archaic way it does things, where like a lot of things are like hidden within sub menus and stuff like that, and but some people can make it sing. It's just like I'm so jealous of all the people who managed to, and still make really amazing things with it. But like I couldn't. Maybe I ran out of patience. Maybe if I gave it a bit more time, maybe I would have learned how to use it properly. But for me, I'm just saying to people, if you're in my situation where you just couldn't get the thing to work, you couldn't get on with it at all, Blender. Especially now it's in 2.9 at the time of recording this video. It's a lot more user friendly to use as long as you're willing to put the time in, and it's learning how to use the bits and pieces can be a little bit tricky at first, but once you've got those bits in position, you can do some really crazy things with it. Like even like with really basic. I only know very basic things with Blender, of course, but if you're making your own artwork, you start to experiment. Oh, what if I put this light here? Or can I increase the wattage? Can I put this over here to add more shadows? Can I inject a secondary color into this texture and make it more green? And you can do a lot more with it once you start to get the hang of it. So it's like, especially, it's a lot more. It's a bit more demanding, but it's a lot more rewarding, if you ask me, because of how you can do so much more with it if you know what you're doing. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I only know like a fraction of what Blender can do, and like it's getting more powerful all the time. It's fantastic, especially with MLP stuff. Like now with NexGen, there's NexGen version models for. Is the new update coming out anytime soon, or can't you discuss that, or is that still a work in progress?
All I can say about the update is it'll come out when it comes out.
It's ready when it's ready. Then,
essentially, yes.
Simply enough. But of course, like there is when it comes to importing assets and stuff, like you can like change textures and so like you can change use the default body and like just import the textures you need for that particular character. Or I want sunset, I'll just import the sunset characters. Or I want I don't know, I want twilight. I'll have twilight this time. You can adjust the default body to suit in a lot of cases, and then once you've got that the texture set up, you're off you go, and then like off to mess around with Blender, and it's you can get a bit overboard, but I'll probably talk about it a little bit later. Once again, I'm digressing a little bit. So this is a good question, I think. Are there any particular hurdles or challenges you come across when making artwork? And this is not just 3D artwork, but making artwork in general, or anything you want to elaborate on.
Challenges when making art. For me, there are two. One is self-confidence. The other is a lack of ideas. And unfortunately, when you mix those two together, you don't really make a lot of art. Like, I have made some pictures, and I have made some recently, but I just kind of haven't been able to. And that, for me, is the biggest hurdle and challenge for me personally as an artist, is just trying to think of an idea. And then when I get there, actually posing it is like, no, this isn't good enough. No, this isn't good enough. And then just eventually just giving up because you just can't get it to look right. As for how to overcome those hurdles that I have, my best advice is, if you are suffering from the same issue, is to have some friends to rely on. Get some feedback from them, like what Wolf did. He sent me works in progress, and I try to give him feedback, and that feedback really does go a long way, whether it is positive or negative. Because if you implement that feedback, you're gonna see, your art improve. The other thing is to just don't stop. If you stop, you're never gonna start it again. I cannot tell you how many pictures I have started and posed basically, and then just stopped because I ran out of ideas. And those pictures are just lost to history because I never opened up their project files again, and I have no idea where they are now. So get some feedback. Yeah, get some feedback. Start. Just start and try not to stop. If you have to take it in sections at a time, you can do that. Today I'm gonna do the pose. Today I'm gonna do the scene build, and today I'm gonna do the lighting. That's perfectly fine. But do not stop that picture. Don't start anything new until you finish that one picture, because you're gonna feel a lot better. Because once you finish that picture, you will feel way more satisfied, and you can start a new picture without feeling that guilt of like, I still haven't finished this other one. And once that doubt starts to form up, it can grow exponentially. So that's my tips on how to beat those challenges, as well as some of the personal hurdles I have as well.
So how do you stay motivated though when you've got out, when you're making a pic? How do you, if you're starting to hit a brick wall? How do you stay motivated? That's another key thing I think to mention.
That's a very, for me, I stay motivated due to the fact that when I get feedback, I'm like, okay, I can implement that, and I can keep going with that. But also, weirdly enough, music kind of motivates me. Like if I'm starting to feel like down, I had to put on a different kind of jam to get my mind working into that working mode again. And believe me, I do suffer from that, from the curse known as what do you call it? From laziness, not laziness, demotivation. I think is what it is where I'm just looking at it, it's not making any progress, and I just stop. But just all right, I forgot what the question was. Oh my goodness, my brain is starting to mess up already.
Motivation. How do you stay motivated? So you use music. So any other pointers you can give to people to stay motivated?
Stay motivated.
So you mentioned music. That's an interesting. I'm completely different on that front. Like I can't put music on while I'm making art or making models. I find it too distracting. But I guess that's the way my brain works. I have to work in silence. I can't have anything else. I get distracted. Like if I open up iTunes, that's it. I stop making art. I just like focus on the music. I guess I'm not that kind of person. Some people like to have something on in the background, like or a podcast even. You might have this on in the background while you're making art. I appreciate it if you do, but I think everyone's different on that front. It's music is a potential one. For me, but I can't deal with music. Like if I'm listening to music, I'm listening to music. I'm not doing anything else. But that's just me, I guess.
And that is fair. But as for just staying motivated, get a work in progress out, share it with a friend, get some feedback, and always remember, your art is not as bad as you think it is. Because the main reason artists get demotivated is because they themselves think the art is trash. But if you get some positive reinforcement from friends, or even just from like a server, a Discord server, then that's gonna help you keep going, because people are telling you, no, this is good, and that's slowly gonna affect your brain to tell you, hey, maybe we should keep going with this. Because if you just stick in your own cloud and you keep thinking this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, it's just gonna be a perpetual cycle, and then eventually you're gonna close that picture and never open it up again. So get a work in progress out, share it with some people, and that tiny little boost of confidence is gonna help you push you over that, help you get over that demotivating edge, and help you finish up that picture and post it to the public so everyone can enjoy it.
It's always the very first. It's very difficult. The very first picture, isn't it?
It always is.
The very first. Getting the first one out there is the crucial one to actually finish. I guess a good tip would be to start small. Don't start crazy big, perhaps like I did. I guess probably a bit too ambitious for the first piece, but anyway. I start off with like something simple, like perhaps just like a. Again, but it's subjective, isn't it? Like a lot of people, some people like to do like really ambitious things for their early pieces and stuff, which is completely fine. If you want to tackle it, go for it. But I don't know. It's. I think planning is a good way to do it. Start off with something small, perhaps, and then see if you can put it into action, I suppose.
There is a stage where planning isn't always the best, because most of my pictures are not planned at all, guys. I'll be honest. I just find a reference and I'm like, oh yeah, let's go with that. Why not? And I just go in blind. When I started using SFM, like I said, my inspiration was Black Jr. and I wanted to make animations, and that was the very first thing I tried to do, was recreate one of his animations. Obviously, for someone that's never touched a 3D program before, that was way overly ambitious. So it gets you that exposure in there, and it also makes you realize some of your real limitations, and it's going to help you get a reference point of, hey, if I want to get to this point, I need to, say, learn how to pose. I need to learn how to use the rig. I need to learn how to get the textures on there. And you start taking those steps, and eventually you're going to get to your goal, because you started big, you realized inside, I'm not ready for this. I got to take this one step at a time. And then eventually, once you get those steps down, then you can make that big, that big ambitious project again. So maybe that's just my personal way of seeing it, is that you sometimes have to start big, fail, and realize what your failures were, and then, work your way up. But that's just the way I see it, and that's the way it kind of worked for me in the end too.
It's subjective, isn't it? Like, it's getting the first one out there, get as much feedback as you can. You of course, that's the crucial thing you've mentioned, isn't it? Like, you've learned your own limitations. Once you've made the first picture or image or whatever it is, like, oh, okay, now it's fully rendered. I've got the lighting all done as best I can get it with my current knowledge, or got everything all rigged and everything. You hit is it F11 to render?
F12.
F12 to render it in Blender. And then you render your first pictures. Oh, okay, awesome. You got your first PNG or JPEG or whatever it is. And then we'll talk, of course, with MLP context. Like, you upload it onto Derpy Brew is probably the main one. Your first port of call, or second, or after that DeviantArt or something like that. You upload it on there, and then it's out there. It's live. It's out there, and then a lot of people can give you feedback and stuff. It's a wonderful feeling once you first. It's bittersweet, I think it is, because you finish it. Like, oh, I've finished this thing. It's taken me a while. I've done it. It's my very first picture, first baby step. But then after the honeymoon period, I suppose, ends, you think, and you look and think, oh, there's a lot that needs work. That's the same with everybody, I think.
Yeah, and just remember, everyone that's listening to this, an artist is their own worst critic. They will always be their own worst critics. So even after you publish it, you're gonna notice stuff that you're like, oh, I should have posed this finger a little better. Oh, this clipping into this. But you can't let those little things distract you. You got to learn from them, and then you got to make that next picture. Because if you don't make that next picture, you're never going to learn. So examine your old picture, your very first picture, learn the mistakes from it, and then do it better the next time. And then do it better the next time. And eventually you will become a much better artist, because you're doing it consistently. You're getting practice in, you're noticing your flaws, and you're actually starting to get more and more knowledge, so you can do those bigger ideas that you have in your head.
So the more you do it, the more proficient you get at your craft. That's the crucial thing, isn't it?
Indeed. It's kind of like with drawing. Yeah. You have to do 100 images before you start to get really good at it.
And perhaps with me, of course, like, learn how to put the bloody clothing on the models first. That might be a good tip.
To be fair, it is a little bit more difficult in Blender than it is in SFM.
Yes, of course. But like, I didn't know how to do it at the time. I spoke about this already, but I'll say it again, because it's absolutely 100% true. When I was making this picture, of course, I was sending works in progress to Hunter. This is what I've got with the picture. I'll put the picture up, the finished picture, with Trixie and Starla sitting on the sofa. Originally, we were going to be watching the TV screen off shot, but I couldn't quite get it to work. But anyway, I didn't know. At the time, you showed me how to like pose the models. Like, you click the the part of the body you want to pose and go into pose mode, press tab, go into pose mode, or you can just click pose mode and you can move the body part where you want it, like the fingers or the hands or the neck or whatever body part it is. I got all that, but I didn't know how to attach attach any clothing. That's absolutely. So I did a picture not knowing the ponies had to be naked. They had to be by default because I didn't know how to put the clothing on. That's absolutely. I'm not joking on that one. So it's nude pieces are fun. That's my excuse, of course. Like, the nude pictures are great, but maybe it would be a good idea to learn how to attach bits of clothing onto the models before you start something like that. Oh dear! But people liked it. It turned out nice. It's okay. It's okay for a first piece, I think.
It's better than my first piece.
It's nowhere near as good as my second one, but anyway. But yes, learn how to put clothing on it using the modifiers. That's a must one to learn. So that's one of the biggest things, isn't it? Of course, like the more you learn the software, the more you get to grips with it, I suppose, and like you become more proficient and your abilities improve over time. That's one of the biggest bits of advice I can give to people. I think as a beginner, I'll still say I'm a beginner in this front.
Yeah, and once you learn more about it, you're going to be able to do more about it too. So,
and like, once you get better, you get to learn how to do the better looter stuff. That's always much more fun.
Indeed.
I guess a lot of people like start to want to get into the loot stuff, of course, briefly. Like people want to, with MLP stuff. I want to do like stuff like Black Junior or anybody else who does like stuff like that. I want to like get to that standard. I want to but there's also like perhaps like material that like maybe not many artists cover that like you are interested in. So I follow a lot of people say I got into art because I want to make stuff that caters to my particular thing I'm interested in, but like not many people are making it. I think that's another motivation for some people.
Yeah, and that is a huge motivation too, because there are a lot of niche fetishes out there that a lot of the big name artists just won't do because they're just not into that. So if you can make it yourself, make it enjoyable, then hey, more power to you, man.
Corner the market if you're thinking about monetizing things. Yeah.
Indeed.
So when you're making a first art piece, what is the process you go through to make an art piece? Do you start off with an idea, or do you just have a nebulous idea and take it from there? What do you usually do when I'm going to make a bit of artwork? What do you start off with?
So there are two ways I make art. So one is nebulous and kind of on the spot, which is the least preferred method for me. It'll just be me loading in a character. I'll try to pose it however I see fit in my brain, and then hope it works. My other preferred way is I look at a lot of graver images from Japan, and I have an app where like every day I can just look it through brand new graver images, and I'm like scrolling through them, and I like, oh, I like that one. I want to put Shirley in that pose, so I will take that real life reference photo, send it to my desktop, and then load up Blender, and I will be like, I'm gonna make this. So that is my preferred way to make art, is using a real life reference, because with real life references, obviously they can't break their bones, they can't do really weird stretches. So it's going to help me make the art look more realistic because I can make it emulate what a realistic pose would look like. That's my preferred way to make art. But like I said, there are times where I made nebulous poses, which are few and far between, but a few of my pictures are that. They're just kind of on the spot. Hey, this is cool, I guess, and then make the picture and then post it out there, and then the next one's probably going to be that real life pose idea.
I think that's a crucial thing, isn't it? Like it's perfectly fine to use reference images, isn't it? Like to gain ideas from, or maybe you want to perhaps emulate a pose that you saw like online or something. It's perfectly fine to use things like that. That's how a lot of artists like work. They've got like their canvas, be it 2D art or 3D art. Like using references are very common practice, like how to make artwork, because like you learn perspectives and lighting and angles, yes, and all that other things.
And you would be surprised how many of those big name artists actually do just use real life photos just to make their art. Like I know Hunterz263, SFM, one of the biggest ones we have, uses a
Of
lot of real
course.
life photos in his art. So you'll be surprised.
They're amazing lighting, especially.
Not all of them do, to be fair, and a lot of them recently don't use real life photos, but a lot of them in his early days, they really did use those real life photos as a reference. And once you know how the human body works, because it is an interesting experience. Like when you become an artist, especially for 3D anthro models, you learn how to you look at your body so differently. Like I remember times when I would just be like trying to figure out a pose, and I would go onto my bed. I'm like, so if I was lying down like this and have my leg up like this, how would this look? Like I look ridiculous, but you learn how the body is supposed to look, and that's how you translate it to the characters so well. And once you get enough practice with that, then you can just go and make art without references, because you just know, hey, if I bent my spine that way, that would break. That's probably not a good idea. So it's a learning experience, and it's fun. It really is fun to get to try out all these poses and try to figure out how they would look in 3D and try to get them to look natural. It is a fun process sometimes.
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah, that is a crucial thing. Like once you start making 3D art, like especially after the first two or three pieces, in my experience anyway, like with that title card I'm currently doing for this very podcast, like I'm putting more into the finer details than I ever did in like the first one or two pictures, because you, especially with stuff like the minutia, like posing the fingers, like to holding the coffee cup and stuff like that. Like it's not as simple as just moving the finger into position. You think about, oh wait, if you bend your finger that way, or the other finger would surely be closer to it because of how the tendons in your hand works and things. Stuff like that. The minutia starts to become more important, especially to me anyway. And you put Raven's got her shoes on, her open toe shoes on. Like I could have left them as they are, but because I'm now paying attention to more stuff like that, I've decided I've actually fixed it so the toes follow the taper of the sole of the shoe. So the toes actually extrude from the front of the shoe correctly. I think they look pretty good. But I wouldn't have never have even thought about that sort of stuff like in the first two or three pictures. But with 3D stuff, it's a lot more. Once you start to make your own bits and pieces, that stuff starts to become more important to you. And like as it becomes more important, your art naturally becomes better because you are paying attention to the finer details. That's another crucial thing.
Indeed, and you do learn to appreciate the human body a lot more, because our bodies are an amazing thing and they can do so much stuff, and trying to translate that to 3D is just, it's an experience, that's for sure.
So let's move on to commissions then. In regards to, say, if you wanted to commission commission an artwork from somebody that you like, one of the artists that you follow, what makes you decide, I want to commission this person to do this particular bit of artwork and realise that idea? What's your decision process in that?
Oh goodness, it's gonna come down to how I like the art. My main commissioner would be Hunterz263 SFM, because I like his bright style. I like the way he poses the bodies. I like the way he does facial expressions, and that's just how I kind of like my stuff. Uh, what that is such a very interesting question, because I have to really think, what does my brain say about why do I like certain character pieces? And geez, I don't know.
You really have to think about it, don't you?
Yeah.
It's not like A to B sort of thing.
Yeah, there really isn't an A to B thing, because I have commissioned many artists before. I commissioned CDV, I commissioned Shadowbolt, I commissioned Ruru, I commissioned Divine at times. Like I've commissioned a lot of people, and just to realize an idea for a particular artist, I don't know. I think it's more kind of on the whim thing, because one artist can do Fluttershy and Twilight kissing together a certain way, and another artist will do it another way. It's the same idea, but they can make much radically different ideas.
It's the execution, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all about that execution and the unique art style. So the thought process behind it is just kind of on the whim. Like if recently I've been wanting a Fluttershy and Twilight picture, and I'm like, I wonder which artist I'll pick for this, and I don't know which one I'll pick, but I just know someday when I'm ready for it, I'll look at their art and I'm like, I want him to make it, and then they'll make it for me, hopefully.
So it's that leads into the next question, isn't it? Like because of course, staying in the realm of commissioning things. So when you like say you approach somebody and ask them a question like, "Are you available for commissions and stuff?" Are there what sort of etiquettes would do you as like a person commissioning stuff when you? What sort of rules do you follow when you actually approach someone to? Hey, can you make this art for me? What etiquettes do you follow when making artwork for people?
So etiquette wise, please be respectful. Remember, people, artists are humans just like you, and they have emotions. So if you're gonna go in there demanding a bunch of stuff without any of their consent, it's not gonna end pretty. Now I have written down the few rules for this, so I'm gonna kind of read them off. So if you're gonna be requesting a commission, or if you're going to commission or request a picture from an artist, please, please, I am begging everyone, have your idea realized before messaging them. If you do not know what you want, please do not message them because you're just going to confuse them and they're not going to know what you want and it's not going to be pretty. If you can, include a reference image, and this could be either a 2D reference image, a 3D reference image, or a real life image. But if you have a reference image, that's going to make the artist's life a ton easier because they're going to know exactly what you want translated from that picture into their own picture. Um, and try to give as much information as possible too. Like, hey, like say you want to commission like Fluttershy, what's she gonna be wearing? How's she gonna be doing? What expression is she gonna have? Try to include all those details. I personally know someone that they commission me. They are so specific with what they want. They even give me RGB values to the color of their clothing, and
That's crazy.
That is the kind of details artists appreciate a ton because colors are are everything, you know, as we all know this. So they're very specific with what they want, and artists do appreciate that. Um, Another thing is to be patient. Like I said, these artists are humans too. We all have our lives, and especially in these troubling times, you know, stuff can happen. Like I've had people, you know, I've known people that have went through some really rough times really recently. So be patient with them and try not to be pestering them constantly either. Let me see what I said.
Speaking from experience, sounds like.
I'm not speaking from experience either. Like this is all just general stuff. Like I've gone through commission. I've commissioned people before, and I've had to wait a very long time sometimes. But I'm respectful. I'm letting them do their thing, and yeah, maybe a little bit is from personal perspective too. Um, Unless that artist is going to give you a specific day, like say, hey, I'll have this done in a week, or hey, I'll have this done, you know, by this day. You should allow that artist to take as much time as possible to make your art, regardless of whether it's 2D art or 3D art, because both take serious amounts of time, no matter what style it is. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to actually flip it over to the artist as well. Conversely, this is for all you artists here. You should understand how eager it is your customers
Listen up.
are to get. You should understand how eager your customers are to get their piece of art, their commission. You've probably commissioned people before, and you know the excitement of actually finally getting that picture and the waiting. It sucks, but you should know how exciting it is to get the art. Now, do not rush it. Let your quality standards slip because once you do, your commissioner is not going to be happy. Just because you want to get it out of the way doesn't mean you should be rushing it and trying to get it, done and over with so you can move on to the next thing. Consider every customer's commission your own art, your own work. Try to make a picture that you are proud of and you can enjoy. If you enjoy that picture, your commissioner is going to enjoy it as well. Because it's worth waiting for a quality piece of art than something that was rushed, that doesn't look that good, and something that just isn't going to be satisfying. Because don't forget, commissioners can come back. If you do a good job, like with Wolf here, like I did commissions for him. If I rushed those things and they didn't look good, I wouldn't have his business ever again. So take your time, make sure it is something you are proud of, and make sure it's something you feel that you can share freely, and that way, you can have that business returned to you.
Yes, of course. Now that I'm actually making art myself, now I can actually speak on both sides of the coin as well, which is really good. It's I guess the as a commission and a starter, first of all, I think another good one to mention is it would be a good idea to ask if they're actually making commission, if their commission slots are available. That's another crucial one. Like just look on if they're advertising. Oh, well, my commissions are open. If they're, for example, they're on their Twitter, it says commissions are closed, then it's not worth contacting them unless they specifically say, "Oh, I'm opening commissions on this date. Send your DMs or whatever." So if the person is inviting requests, then of course send them away. But best thing to do is just be polite. Like, might just ask a question: "Are you currently available for commissions?" And then once the conversation starts, then you can relay the idea that you've currently got. So that's a crucial thing. And a good one to make note of is go back to fetishes, of course. That's another crucial thing, like the awkward word. But you might have a specific. Going back to like you might have like a specific fetish that you're into, and you want to say commission a scenario in that particular fetish. Might be a good idea to check if they've done similar artworks in that particular style, because of course, again, as Hunter's already said, not everyone's comfortable doing catering to your specific thing. I think that's another crucial one to learn. Like, it's because of course, like just asking that person to do something in your particular thing that you like might make them a bit uncomfortable, which is another crucial thing to learn. Again, you can always ask the question, and if they say no, then that's it. That's fine. They've that all I can say is no. Like, it's not my thing, and it could be perhaps a good idea just to have like a plan B set up instead. Like, oh, okay, then would you be interested in doing this instead? And 9 times out of 10. I think you probably find they'll do that instead, and they appreciate you having something else that caters to their tastes as well. So it's a two-way thing.
It is very much a two-way thing. But remember, even if they say no to your particular fetish, there are so many artists out there, so many underground artists that have yet to be discovered because they do like that specific fetish that is kind of underground. So don't give up hope, because eventually you're going to find someone that's going to take on that job and they're going to enjoy it. And you're going to bring them exposure as well. So don't give up hope on that.
I think everything's pretty much covered if you know where to look.
Yeah, just about everything. If you checked every brew, there's a lot of stuff on there, that's for sure.
Okay, here's a personal question for me. Like, if you, of course, like, there's stuff that you're not particularly interested in doing, but even if they're like one of your best friends, would you consider doing catering to that particular fetish, even though if you didn't particularly like it? If you knew them, or that, like, I'll do it for him because I like this guy or like this person. Would you consider it?
That's interesting because
I'm not it's not for me personally, but that's just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I feel what you mean. Jeez.
Hunter, can you do this thing for me? I know you don't like doing it, but I've got this thing.
Oh, jeez.
Can you do this thing for me?
I think it's gonna come down to what it specifically is, because there's a few fetishes I will not do. But funny enough, one of my friends actually did ask me to do a not ask per se, but he had the idea of commissioning me to do a picture with breast milking, like an actual like picture where milk is coming out of the breast, which is not my thing at all. So funny enough, I was about to say yes to that, but he kind of canceled on that because he wanted it to be animated and he wanted it to be be actually a full thing, and I'm not really an animator per se. So yeah, I think I would help him out, help him do that particular fetish, accept their commission, but it's gonna be very dependent on what it is, because there's a few things I just won't touch at all with the 10-foot pole.
No, yeah, there's a few. That's probably that's kind of that's on the tamer side of the scale, I would have said personally, but everyone has their. I'm stressing that point. Everyone, like every artist is different and has different what's the word? Not limitate. Like, is it limitations? Is
I would say boundaries. They would have different
boundaries. Thank you. Boundaries. That's the correct phrase. Correct term. Boundaries. Where so it would be a good idea just to check their previous stuff. Like if they've catered to stuff like they've done similar stuff they've done like to what you like before, then that you've got a good chance that they'll do the thing that you want, the scenario that you want making into artwork for you. Like, and another good one is just to check if they've got like a lot of a good idea for artists to do is to have like a commission sheet or a profile, just to say, these are my prices. This the 2 anthros or 3 anthros would be like, I don't know, $25 or $30, whatever price you want to charge, and then it will usually at the bottom it will say, I will not do such and such fetishes and stuff like that, and it's best just to follow that sort of stuff. Follow what so they've already specifically said, I won't do such and such, I won't do lactation, I won't do scatological stuff, or it's pretty standard really. So it's just general. Just do a bit of research first. I think that's a crucial one to do on the artist.
If you come prepared and read the rules, they're much more likely to accept it, because if you go to them and say, hey, can you do this, hey, how much is it going to cost, they're not going to accept it, because if you don't take the time to read, take 30 seconds to read their commission sheet, they're not going to waste that time on you, because you didn't give your time to learn what they can do for you. Like, that's important. So if they have that commission sheet, look at it, know their prices, know what you're getting into, because if you do, they're going to be much more eager to work on your project than someone that just kind of went like, oh, hey, I want to commission Ets and Ets and Ets with my OC, how much is it going to cost? And once you tell them that price, they're going to be surprised, and you're going to be surprised, and you're going to be taken off guard, and it's not going to be good for you. So take the time, look at those commission sheets, know the rules, and be respectful. Always be respectful to an artist.
Yes, of course, and of course, like if there's still a few vagueness you want to clear up, just ask the question.
Yeah, and it's always good to ask questions, but ask them in a nice manner. Don't be like, "Hey, why the hell are you not fucking doing this, you stupid piece of shit?" Don't ask it like that. Just be like, "Hey, do you do?"
You'd be surprised. Yeah, that does happen in those words as well.
Yes, it does happen in those words. So just be respectful, be kind, be professional, and you'll have a good experience. Trust me.
Yeah, that's one of the crucial things. Just be patient. Like, do your research. Ask the questions if you have any. But of course, if they decline, they can do. Just find somebody else. Ask someone else to do some commissions for you.
Indeed.
I'm just trying to. I picked this question because as speaking as like a commissioner back then, I've perhaps pushed my luck a little bit, I suppose. Looking back at it, not in a deliberately malicious way. A lot of people, like, it can be quite awkward experience, I suppose. Like especially when you commission your very first piece, I think it can be quite awkward.
Yeah,
I think it can be. I'm not saying that's totally the case. Especially was for me, like, quite introverted usually. Like, I find it difficult to speak to people at the best of times, unless I get to know them, of course. But, like, asking the question to make a bit of artwork, it can be a bit intimidating. But as long as you're respectful and just wait patiently for their response and just like open up a dialogue that way, it's always a good place to start. They can always say no, and all you got to do is move on, and that's it. That's your part of the transaction over, I suppose, as long as you keep within the boundaries. Going back to what I was saying, I won't mention their names, of course, if the case they don't want to be mentioned. Of course, they can. They don't know who they are. About a year ago, I commissioned a piece from somebody. Like, I sent a message. I didn't get a message for a while. That's totally fine. Like, I knew they were busy. I think they got back to me about a month later and said, "Oh, awesome! My commissions are open now. Do you still want to take the slot?" And I said, "Yes, please. Here's my idea. Can you commission it for me?" And he did, an amazing job on it. And no problem at all with the art. The art was fantastic, and it got loads of upvotes, and loads of people loved it, and not as much as I did. But I guess it's sort of like, looking back on it now, like, I guess like I was being a bit overzealous with requesting loads and loads of edits. I think that was my. They haven't blocked me on Twitter or anything, but like I can tell, like, it sort of. looking back on it, like that probably wasn't the best way of going about it. Like I was a bit too eager, I suppose. I'm willing to pay for everything, of course. Like I'll give you the money, just name your price and all that. But I was sort of looking back on it, I was sort of kind of a bit pushy, I suppose. But so like when nothing came of it, like I just left it alone, and like I didn't sort of. It's one of those things. This will lead into like the next bunch of questions at the end. But that's from. I've learnt my lesson. Now I'm an artist. Now, I've not that it's happened to me. Like karma's a bitch and all that stuff. Like it's. I do get some strange comments coming through, like somebody. I did get one the other day asking me for free stuff.
Yes, and that,
already I've only made 2 pictures.
Yes, yes, that happens. Like no matter
but
what.
After 2 pictures though.
No, yeah,
I've made it.
Too. It happened to me too. Like I posted my second picture. I don't think I got it right away, but like after like my third or fourth, they're like, hey, I want to get something from you. I'm like, what? I do you see the quality of these pictures? Like, excuse me? And they're like, yeah, I want to get a picture of you. I'm like,
yeah, you want to pay?
Well, I didn't say I was going to pay because I was still using the Soria body back then, but I was definitely like, I'll consider it. I'll consider your request. I never actually got around to doing it, but maybe someday I will.
But like, I didn't expect to get it that early on. Like, I've only made 2. Like this was after the Fluttershy and Rarity picture I did. It was like just asking free stuff. Like I kind of I'm annoyed with myself really because I kind of knew deep down this is going to be ridiculous. This was on Twitter, not on Derpy Brew itself. This was on Twitter. This one I've since blocked them, by the way, because they got a bit aggressive, so I've blocked them. You're the first in the block list. Well done on my Twitter account. So well done, you, whatever your name was. I've forgotten who it was. I don't care who you are. But it's sort of. I was just laughing my head off when I first got that. Like it can't be this early, surely.
I know, but it happens. It always happens. No matter what the artist says, they like after the third or fourth piece, it just happens.
I've made it already.
Yeah, you made it.
I've peaked already. I can retire now.
Indeed.
Oh, jeez. But that's another common. That's as common as like it didn't scan through on the till. That means it's free, right?
Yeah.
Shut up. That's as common as one of them sort of.
As a retail worker, I've had that so many times. Like anytime someone says that, I just laugh because it's just so generic to say. It's just funny. It's
like one of the default responses. Like, oh, for God's sake, just leave. Just get out of my face, please. Take your stock goodness. And leave. Just like you're a comedian now, right? Oh, crazy.
Yeah, apparently.
That's a common one. What was the other one? I'm trying to remember now. It was weird. It was not a request as such, but like they were complimenting my work. They sent me a DM like, I like your artwork. Thank you very much. I replied, thank you very much. And then like the second one was like in capital letters, so as if like they were shouting at me. I mean it. I like your work. And the following was really strangely aggressive. Like, okay, are you going to attack me now or something? But that was a weird one. That was like, yeah.
For anyone listening that has an artist they like that's brand new, don't do that. Make your comments, be like, professional. Don't go all caps, and don't be aggressive to them with free requests, because just because they're starting out making art doesn't mean they're already gonna open up requests to make your art for free. So just give them time. If they're gonna say, hey, I'm opening up requests, then you can go and ask them. But until then, let them do their thing. Let them learn. They're brand new artists, so just let them do their thing. Don't be aggressive with them. Just be gentle. Just be gentle.
I like your art. Oh, that's yeah. Don't be creepy. That's another one. I think is that a given?
Yeah, it's don't be creepy, because there is so many people. Like when you especially towards the big artists. If you like an artist, do not message them with creepy stuff, or like even just in general. Like, it's okay to say hi, and if they want to strike up a conversation with you, do that. Be a conversation. But I've had many people message me, and mind you, I'm not a big artist. I'm not even that big of a celebrity in the fandom. And I've had people message me like,
You're
"Hey,
a D tier in Pony Famous, Horse
I
Famous. Is that the
I
phrase?
get messages be like, "Hi," and I'm like, "Hello there," and they're like, "I'm depressed." And I'm like, this is literally the
That's
message.
another one. Yeah.
Second message I got from them. They're like, "I'm depressed." I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do about that? And obviously I go do my own thing with them, but don't be like, I love you. You could compliment the art. You can, say hi to them, be casual, but that's the key. Be casual. Do not be sad. Do not be creepy. Do not be obsessive. And what I mean by excessive is going on these long poetic, tangents of like, your artwork has literally changed my life. I cannot believe I found such a divine being. That stuff is weird. It's art. It's not.
It's a bit heavy for like the opener, isn't it?
Yeah, especially for the opener. Like if you get to know them, like what Antoine is.
Yeah, of course. Like build up a rapport with the person.
Yeah, build up a rapport, and then you can get into that kind of joking art. But until then, you just stay cool. Just talk to them like they're a person, not as an artist, just as a person, and you can make some very good friends just by doing that. Even with the big name artists, like remember. When I started out art, it was like 2-3 years ago, and Anthroponi's SFM was starting to get like a big following. Like this was back in the Tumblr days, and he had like 2,000 followers, and I had like 20. And I just messaged him, be like, "Hey, I really like your art. You're really cool." And we just stuck up a conversation, and he's my best friend now. So you can make friends with these big artists if you just keep it cool. Don't bring up their status. Just treat them like a normal, everyday person. Because in the end, that's what all of us are. Just normal, everyday people that have our flaws, that have our downsides, and just want to be treated like an equal, essentially.
Yes, definitely. He's a pro. He's Anthroponi's SFM. He's probably one of the best ones in the SFM game, I think, by far.
Yeah. I'm with you there on that one.
He did the camera piece like with the photo shoot one. You know what I'm talking about, the one on commission. That was a plan B. That was. I don't know whether I told you this before. I might have done, but that was a plan B. So I spoke to him like I got a commission. Like he was completely professional. He was amazing with it.
Yeah.
I gave him an idea like I wanted to do. It was originally supposed to be a gift art, but like it sort of fell through anyway. But the idea is he wasn't comfortable with it, so I said, "Oh, okay, I'll come back to you in about a couple of days. I'll come back with a plan B." And he did originally say, "Do you still want to go ahead with it?" He was completely prepared to go ahead with the original idea, but I said, "No, that's fine. I know you're not comfortable with it. I thought I'd ask the question first anyway." But that was the plan B. So, can you do this camera shoot idea thing with Luna, Cadence, and it was and Rarity, of course. It was Twilight, Luna, Cadence, and Rarity. Yeah, those four. And it was like a two-parter, and it turned out even better than I could ever hoped. It was fantastic. He completely did an amazing job on those.
Indeed.
And and people liked it. So I'm completely over the moon with it. So it can work out. Just treat people like humans and stuff like that, and that was like a happy sort of that plan B worked out better than plan A would have done anyway. So I'm completely pleased how that turned out. So that's one of the best ones I've ever commissioned so far. So check it out, it's awesome. We've got a few questions here. This is an anonymous question we got from going to the small Q&A section at the end. People have already sent questions in already, but they were basically pretty much the same as what I've already asked you already. So I'll put them in the credits, like on throughout the video who asked the questions.
All right.
This is an anonymous one. A bit of a long-winded one. Do you have people who are haters, or know anyone who deeply dislikes or despises you? Despises is a strong word, isn't it? For whatever reason. Whether it can be because of the way you treated a person or gotten treated by someone unfairly. I can't really comment on that really. Like, do you have any hate? Hate's a bit. I hate you. You've got one hater.
I guess I have a hater now. But
you got one.
In all seriousness, I mean, I've had like a few run-ins in the past where I've met some uncomfortable individuals, and maybe I, didn't treat them right. I have a bad habit of sometimes ghosting people. That's just a personal habit of mine because, I'll sometimes just want to sit in bed and read, or I'm at work and I just forget to message. Like, even Wolf, you have gone through this yourself where I just forget to message. That's just my error. So I hope I don't have any haters to my knowledge. At least I hope I don't, because I feel like I try to treat everyone with respect. I try to give everyone my time, and I try to help some people. Like, even those people that message me, hey, I'm depressed, I will write a long-winded response on how to feel better. Like, I hope I treat people fairly, but if not, then I want to apologize to you in advance for anything that I've done in the past. And I just hope you can forgive me for something I did that obviously I didn't know what I was doing at the time.
I think. I think it's probably a bit of a strong way to phrase it. I suppose. I guess I think this person probably means in terms of posting artwork, I suppose, or maybe like having like drama in the message board sort of thing he's referring to. Like, do you get people like posting like malicious messages on your artworks? I think he's going that sort of angle.
I've had a few people troll my artwork just because I forget to put a tag onto the brew, but I haven't had any really like malicious messages like, "Hey, your artwork sucked, and I hope I go fucking find you so I can slash your throat at night." I haven't had anything like that in my artwork, thankfully. But if I did, I'd be laughing because obviously that's just a big giant troll. So I learned to laugh at that stuff because it's just amusing. I have had drama break out in servers I moderate. Not gonna name them, not gonna name who, because honestly I really forgot who caused the drama. But I've had drama happen in servers, and I've had to step in, stop putting into it. But nothing that's been really, out of hand. Just a few bans here and there, but nothing really to be like noteworthy in my opinion. Anyway,
No, I can't think of anything. It's hate's a bit of a strong word, isn't it?
it is.
It's I guess it's more if you've got more of a presence on like message boards like 4chan and stuff. If you're involved with that side of things, I suppose. Like I hear stories, but I've never been involved with any of that stuff. Like a lot of stuff with like 4chan and all those kind of message boards where like all that stuff with like drama and starting flame wars in the forums and all sort of stuff, and like sending hate mail to each other, all sorts of things. You got know way more about this sort of stuff than I do, but
4chan is it's an experience. I don't recommend anyone go there because you will probably regret what you see. But it all depends on where you go. But trust me,
it's a hellscape, isn't it? It's a hellscape.
It is a wild place. It is a wild place to be on, indeed.
There's different boards on there. They've got their own pony board, of course, the pony board. But I only looked at one page. Thought, no, this is not for me. I'm leaving. I've had enough. The pony thread simulators are a riot though on YouTube. I absolutely. Homer Simpson does a load of those. The YouTube, but not the character, but this guy channel on YouTube. Really, it's quite funny, but like horrifying at the same time.
It is.
But that is probably another topic for another day, I think. But don't really have much to really comment on that front, really. For me, haters. For me, I suppose other than those not haters, not really, not applicable for me. I don't think I'm not popular enough anyway to really garner that kind of like malicious attention at the moment, anyway. But I guess when you've got like a presence online of any kind, really, whether making artwork or making videos for YouTube or whatever it is, or making music, no matter how good your stuff is, whatever it is, artwork or music or whatever, you are going to get people who are jealous of you, people who are trying to get a rise out of you, trying to get your attention, just for whole menagerie of reasons. And I don't have an answer to really deal with that. I suppose it depends on the scenario. What the punishment fit in the crime, I suppose. Like whether you decide to block that particular person or completely ignore them, ghost them, or whatever you decide to do. Whether you be the artist or it can vary. I've only been in like making stuff for like 3 or 4 months. I haven't really garnered anything that kind of malicious attention, at least yet, anyway. Thankfully, but it's I suppose as a bit of general advice, I suppose I could suggest is if we're all human, of course, like whether you're an artist or like you're a person in terms of like commissioning things, I suppose we'll link it up to that. If you even if you try to come across as like not malicious in the way that you're acting or the way that you present yourself to the person you're talking to, they don't know what your intentions are. I think that's the crucial thing to mention. Like you might not in your own mind be coming across as like malicious or creepy or combative or whatever phrase you want to use, but to the other person, they don't know what your motives are. Especially if you've never spoken to that person before, they don't know your verbal tics. They don't know how you operate. Once you get to know that person, of course, you understand how they work. But at that initial stage, when you first initialize a conversation, you might come across in like a way that makes that person uncomfortable, and as a result, you might find yourself like you've been blocked on Twitter, or they don't reply to any of your messages you send them and stuff like that. That's just a fact of life, really.
Yeah.
If that's the case, if in that scenario, I don't know if it's not applicable to you, of course. I don't think it is applicable to this person who's asked this question, but I'm trying to link it best as I could to my experiences anyway. It's as an artist and of course like commission stuff as well. It's if you find yourself in that sort of situation where this person's like not replying to you, or perhaps they're not responding to your messages, or they've completely blocked you outright. It might be a good idea. Say you're human. You might not think you're malicious, but you might have done something wrong to upset them. I'm not saying this person has. Of course, I'm just like taking a hazard guess, of course, but trying to see it from both sides of the coin. It's just a case of it's best to just move on. Don't harass the person.
Yeah, and that is crucial because the past is an interesting thing. You can get trapped in it, and it's going to be self-perpetuating. And if you are constantly thinking about what could I have done wrong to this person, why did they block me, you're never going to get better. So it is essential. If this particular person, if you are blocked by someone, don't fret about it. There are so many wonderful people out in this world. So many artists, so many people, so many just everything. Just don't fret about losing one person, because if you do, you're never gonna find anything new. Who knows? You might have seen something that, would be cool, would be good, like a good person to meet, but you're trapped in this self-perpetuating cycle of doubt that you failed to like contact them. So just move on from it. Don't be so, fed up in the past, and just carry on. That's all we can do is just carry on. And
just move on and move on to other avenues. Of course, like one door closes, another one opens.
Yeah,
is the phrase.
Exactly.
Of course, I'm not being specific to that, but I'm just making a general.
This is all general applicable. If someone has you blocked, if someone doesn't like you and they just don't want to talk to you, then forget about it. Just find someone else to talk to, because there's 7 billion people on Earth. You have a lot of people to talk to, especially nowadays. So you'll find someone new and someone even better, and it's gonna be good.
Yeah, that's it, and just that's the crucial thing. Just like it's a part of. I think I've pretty much I've upset a few people, not completely unintentionally, but they probably don't want to talk to me anymore, and that's just the fact of life, basically. Everything is basically half chance. In some scenarios you might not have acted the way you should have done, or your intentions became misunderstood by the other party, or you said something that you didn't mean to, and it so many different factors at play. But it's the crucial thing is just don't stay in one place. Just keep moving forward. I think that's that sort of thing. Like, it's not worth dealing with drama and stuff on the internet. It's best just to, if you're able to, just don't take part of it and just move on. It's not worth your time.
I agree.
To be honest. I think hopefully we covered that decently enough. One last one from the Q&A section.
Last question.
Last one. Unless we've got like more discussions after this. From Kanaga. Do you like cute or lewd arts more? Ooh. Is that how you say it? Ooh.
Yeah, I think it's like ooh or something like that.
Is that a furry thing? Is it ooh? Is that a furry thing?
It is a Japanese thing, if I'm not mistaken.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Ooh senpai. Ooh.
Yeah, I think it's a Japanese thing, if I'm not mistaken. But if I like cute or lewd art, I say
why not both?
Yeah, that's essentially I like both. I like both in equal measures, and I like both being combined. I just like art in general. There's a few pictures I don't like in general, but for me, it's not a matter of whether it's cute or lewd because I have a ton of both. If I find good art and I like it, I'm gonna like it no matter what kind of type it is. But if I had to choose a preference, I would say I like cute art better because it's just so wholesome and it just makes me want to squeeze those little ponies and hug them all the time.
But there's also the other side where like you want the lewd stuff as well.
Yes.
To cater that.
Especially in the Anthro especially if they got cute little bodies like I'll be honest, I have posters of like some 3D art and it's kind of lewd and it makes me just want to like go over there and give them a good time. But it's just good to look at. So I like both, but I would say just for the wholesomeness, I like the cute art better.
You're going for cute more so than lewd, more leaning towards more cute than lewd.
I would say yes.
Again, I think I'm 50-50. It depends on the scenario. Like it's best to have like a nice balance of both. Of course, there's not just cute stuff. There's like cool stuff, or there's awesome stuff, and there's all sorts of different slants you can go onto it. It depends on the scenario, I suppose. Like I like a bit of everything, I suppose. If you ever wanted to like know what I'm into, just look through my commission favourites if you want. If you want to look through them, be my guest. I don't discuss them because I know a lot of people don't like a lot of stuff that I like, but of course we've discussed that already. But you can get some really nice pictures that like are really nice and wholesome, and like you want them as a wallpaper. And there's other ones where like you have on your phone and you don't show anybody. on the other side of the coin. So it's I think 50-50. But if you can get like a nice mix of both, then that is always a win. If you get like a nice balance between the two on like one individual picture, if you're really good at that particular kind of artwork.
Indeed.
And that is that. We've exhausted all the questions on my sheet. I think that is a good place to stop for this episode. I don't, unless there's anything else you want to discuss. As I say, this podcast is. I think it's gone extremely well. I'm really pleased how it's turned out. It's really for a good solid 2 hours we've been talking. I hope you guys listening found it interesting and entertaining. As I say, I am up for more episodes in the future. If Hunter's up for it, of course we would try and think of do more in the future if it's a possibility. This is of course like a test the water sort of thing for episode 1, but I think I've got nothing else to cover. I think that's about it for 2 hours. I think, unless you got anything else.
I would just like to say that that I did enjoy the podcast very much. It was very fun. It's very fun trying to answer these questions, and I just want that anyone that's listening to know is that just let us know how you enjoyed it, and if you do want to see more. And
yes, definitely.
And
yes.
I know a lot of artists, and if you guys possibly want to have some more interviews, be like, hey, where Wolf and I go and interview, say one of the bigger artists. Let us know, because no guarantees. There's no guarantees.
No guarantees, but like, of course, like if I've got Hunter on my side, I've probably got bigger pull to get some of the bigger people coming. I won't be able to do it on my own, of course, but it's a possibility.
It is a possibility.
It's an blue sky suggestion, a possibility. We haven't got anything set in stone as of yet, but this was, as I say, this is the first episode. But it's turned out really well. Give us the feedback. Either or not, as I still haven't figured everything out yet. Of course, for people who haven't watched the live stream, I will be streaming this live, of course. But we know that already. You're nearly at the end of the podcast, aren't you? If you're watching this live, you know what I mean, in past tense. It the after the VOD will be available on Picarto. You can watch it on there. I don't know whether YouTube is YouTube's a bit dodgy for this sort of thing.
Yeah, I would say. I don't even know what a good.
I'm not against it. It's just YouTube's a bit of a mess for that. With especially with not safe for work stuff. I could do the audio only track if you wanted, but again, it's a bit dicey. Let's just put it that way. Using
it
YouTube.
always is. It always is.
So Picarto is like nice and safe because their policy allows like not safe for work stuff. In terms of artwork and podcasts and whatever it is, so it's safe on there. I will look into doing some sort of audio only sort of version somewhere. I don't know whether it might be a case of me just having like a Google Drive full of MP3s or something. I'll think of something or an RSS. Is that even a thing anymore? RSS feeds?
Oh,
or is that on my tool?
I'm not even sure those are a thing anymore.
It's
I don't know.
I'll release it on Laserdisc. How about that?
Oh, jeez, Laserdisc would be amazing to have.
Or VHS. That's probably a bit more approachable. Or a Betamax. Or something even older than that. VCD.
Oh,
compact disc. On cassette. I could if I really wanted to, but who the hell? Just for the memes.
Yeah, just
there's like one cassette. There's one sold cassette out there of me and Hunter out there somewhere. It's really rare. It's worth about $7 at a push if you can find it. Release it on Discogs and then like, it's really sought after. I know, but I'll think of an audio only solution. I just don't know how to approach it yet. This is still, again, a work in progress. Like all that stuff will come later once I've actually edited everything and cleaned it up and put all the lovely pictures and the video footage and all the rest of it on there. For the video version anyway. But I'll have a thing. And any again, as Hunter said, any feedback, any questions, any suggestions. If you want to send us any messages on Twitter, like any regarding the podcast, please do. Give us your feedback, either to myself or Hunter on Twitter or what have you on Derpy Brew as well. I'll do an advert on there as well. I'll put the title card on there as a little advert. You can send some DMs on there if you want. So it's just I'm still haven't. It's taken shape, but I still haven't fully finalised everything yet. But like all that will come later, I think. But for episode 1, I think I'm absolutely over the moon. It's gone really well.
I would agree.
Over 2 hours. It goes. The first 10 minutes is always the difficult bit. It really is. And then once you get into the flow of it, it goes by like that, and it has. It's 2 hours are gone already, and my voice is giving out.
So I think it's a good time to stop because we don't want to lose our voices either. Gotta have those.
Gotta have those.
So I do want to thank everyone for tuning in, and I want to thank Wolf here for having me as a guest. I had a lot of fun. I'm glad I could share some of my.
It was his idea as well, and it was. I never even entertained the idea originally to have guests on until you suggested it. Like, I'd love to do a podcast. Oh, okay, sure. I never even entertained the idea of asking anybody. I thought it was originally just going to be me every now and then, maybe showing works in progress and like my personal experiences. But I think having other people on is a lot more perspectives on the same thing is a lot more. It fulfills the objective of this podcast being for artists like are interested in MLP in general and Blender and SFM and all that good stuff. If there's more perspectives, it's a lot more useful overall and more interesting, I think.
I agree.
But yes, I think that's enough waffling, I think. Thank you so much, Hunter, for joining the show. I appreciate it immensely. I hope you've enjoyed it. I think you have, which is great. So, episode 1, thank you for listening, everybody, or thank you for watching. Do let us know. Follow Hunter on Twitter. I'll put all the handles and all the bits and pieces on the screen right now on the video version, or I'll put links in the description wherever. I'll put this title card as well. So thank you for checking out our bits and pieces. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye, guys.